In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to solve the Rubik's clock. It's a very simple puzzle. It's just understanding how the pieces move is a little bit hard, but it's fairly easy to learn. So, in order to solve it, you have to have all the clocks facing up or towards the 12. For most clocks, I believe, the logo will be at the bottom, so that's another easy way to tell. So I'm going to go over how the pieces move before I get into teaching you guys how to solve it. So there are three different kinds of pieces. There are corner clocks, there are edge clocks, and there are center clocks, just like 3x3. But unlike 3x3, there's only two center clocks. There is a total of 8 edge clocks and corner clocks, both 8 for both of them, because there's 4 on each side. So anyway, as you can see, all the pins are currently up on this side for now. Just ignore that this pin's missing this cap. But if we put one of these down, then it will only move the corner. But if it's up, it's kind of hard to explain how this works, but if all of them are up on one side, then they will all move. And there's little dials on the side to control how much it moves. But if you put one of them down, when the next puts this one down, it's only gonna not affect this corner. So all the other pieces will move besides that corner. But if you have two like this, it's not gonna affect this entire row or column. I can't remember right now. So, but if you put 3 down, then it's not gonna affect this or this. It'll only affect this one. But if you put all of them down, then it will affect all the corners. And if you put only one of them down, and you move the one right next to the corner, then right next to the diagonally from the down pin, it's gonna only move that corner. Means like in this case, it moves all of the pieces like this, but then it moves only this corner like this. So with understanding like that, you can develop algorithms. Like what we can do is we can put these 2 pins down to try to solve this edge, and then put it back up, and then do that. So if you guys have any questions on how to do that, I'll make a tutorial specifically for that. But without further ado, let's get started with the tutorial. So the first thing I do when I go to solve a clock is I make sure all the pins are facing on the same face. It just makes it easier like that. The first thing we're going to do is put all the tiny 12s. You can kind of see it's a 12. We're going to put them facing like this. You can make them face any direction you want, but it's a lot easier to have 12 on top. And then what we're going to do is we're going to move this center one, which doesn't matter that it's moving other pieces right now. We are going to solve the middle clock. Next, you can pick any of these edges. You normally go with the top one. If you're going with the top one, you want to put the two pins that are right next to them down, and then you're gonna have this match this one. So you wanna have the center one match this one, and we can't move this because that's only gonna affect the corners. So we have to move this dial to match these two, and then we can put these two up, and now we can use a more natural way. And now what I do is I normally go to this side and I put these 2 pins down. You put these in the pins that are right next to it. You have the center matching this, which also matches this one, because if that one doesn't get matched, then it's just not going to work. And then put the pins up and do that. And then the same thing with this. You put the 2 closest pins down, have the center one match this one, and now they're all facing the same direction. Put the pins up and put them both back at 12, and repeat the same process for this one. And now you have your cross solve. Now you're not going to solve the corners. You're going to flip the cube all the way around and do the exact same thing. It's exactly the same process. If you do it correctly, it's not going to affect the back. I'll show you what I mean. We put these 2 pins down. We move this right here. Put that up like this. Move these 2 pins down. Or make sure they're all facing the same direction. Put it 12, and I will just do the last ones. Now we have a cross. Now, if you notice something about the corners, the cool thing about the corners is that they're always facing the same direction. So, like, see how this one is at the 1, at the 1? Well, this one's going to be at the 11. So, this and this, they're always pointing this, they're always going to be pointing that way or that way, depending on which way you're looking at it. So that means if you solve one side of the corners, you solve both sides of the corners. So now we're going to do pretty much the exact same thing we did for edges. We can start with this one. We put this pin down, the pin that's closest to the corner. We have all the edges match that corner. We put it up and we put it back at 12. Now we do the same thing with this one. Make sure you're not moving this one though. Even though it looks like you could just do that, it actually messes up the back. So just don't do that. And you put this one down, move this like this, and just continue the process for the next two ones. I generally move on to this one, and now they're matching, and put it up, and like that, and like this. And that's how you solve the clock. It's really simple, and if you don't mess up, you should get something like this. If you have any questions on how to solve any how to get faster, or if you're not quite unsure if you understand how the clock itself, moving pieces works, then I will make a video on that. So you can just look up another tutorial, but I will try and I'll make another video. I'm gonna do one example solve before I go, and just to show you guys an example of what a solve would look like. Okay, so what you do is, so after putting all the pins up on the same side is solving the center, obviously. Moving up to the first edge, we can match them, and then we can solve it. And then we do the same thing with this one. Repeat the process for the bottom one. And finally, for this one. That solves the cross. And this one, you solve the center because that does not affect the back. Solve the top one using that same process, and then the one on this side. And here's a little trick: is what you can do is solve one, but instead of resolving them after this, you can just make sure they match this before you putting them back. That's a much faster way to solve it, and it solves more pieces. Once you can do the same thing with the corners, is make sure they match, and just move right on to the next one. So now they're matching, and then you can do the same thing. Now you can do the same thing with this corner, and same thing for the last corner. That's just a little trick if you want to get better at clock. Make sure the back is solved, and there you have it. That's how you solve